Never believe a story, whether it's someone else's or your own. This is something that was reinforced to me recently. And what I mean by this is that we all internalize our experience as this truth, right? That it is this absolute thing and that's it. However, it's a perspective, it's an experience, and it doesn't necessarily represent the full truth, the actual truth, or anything of that nature, right? As Don Miguel Ruiz points out, we are all storytellers. Now, one thing that he tries to get us to do is to shed ourselves of the negative stories, the ones that weigh us down, that bring us misery, and instead to create one of joy and love. And even for himself, when he does this, he's quick to point out, at the end of the day, it's just a story, right? But if you're going to have any story, might as well be a good one, right? That you're going to hold on to and believe, one that empowers you. Now, the reason I really say this is because I'm going to take it to another level, right? So there's a wonderful therapist named Diederik Wolsak, and he has this protocol called Choose Again. In fact, that's what the title of his book is. And when you read the book, there's a section in there that speaks about this patient that came to him after so many other attempts at therapy with other psychologists. And for two and a half hours, she told him about her childhood and this experience of essentially being habitually raped. And for 2.5 hours, right, she's telling this, and the reason why it's taking 2.5 hours is because that's the amount of pain that she has even in expressing this to Diederik Wolsak. And yet he doesn't give the typical reaction that other therapists gave, where they basically internalized it and were like, oh, they felt her pain of that. And one would say, well, who wouldn't, correct? Right? If this is something that happened to the woman, how could you not have that sort of empathy and so forth? But he points out that one of his rules as a therapist is to never believe the story. Again, that might sound very insensitive. And it's not to say that that there's not a kernel of truth, right? That he's not denying that experience happened. But from that, there's a story that is shaped. And in most particular cases, it's one of victimhood. If we're going to look at any sort of duality, you can either be a victim or you can be a creator, right? And it's not to deny that experience happened, but it is in how you respond to it that matters, right? As plenty of other people have pointed out. Now, in Diederik Wolsak's case, what he argues is, if I start to believe the story, now I'm in there with you, and I cannot see a path out. And this is very profound and very difficult, because as a society overall, we say that it is noble, to have compassion for our friends in that way. Now, granted, he's in a different capacity, right? Being a friend-to-friend sort of relationship is different than a therapist to a client. And oftentimes with my friends, I say like, hey, even just on the base level of like, let's say they share something artistic with me, I'm like, what sort of feedback are you looking for, right? Are you looking for notes or, something congratulatory, or, if someone comes to me with a problem, are you looking for solutions, or you just need someone to listen to, right? So I kind of make that distinction right off the bat. Now, if they establish that they would like solutions, then yes, it makes sense that if there's a problem, and in order for me to have those solutions, I can't be in the trenches with them. I mean, after all, that's why they come to you. And it's not to reject that event, but it's to help them past it, to help them to start to be able to go from that victimhood into creator. Now, it's obviously a lot more complicated than that, and I'm not a therapist myself, but it is amazing in my own experience, the stories that in general I've adopted that are completely false and that do not actually serve me. We call these limiting beliefs. And once I work with my therapist to shed those, how much more light I feel, right? And can carry myself through the world in a more joyous way. And so it goes, that's why I said it goes for other people, and yet it especially goes for ourselves, right? Going back to that idea of Don Miguel Ruiz, we're all storytellers. And if anything, just adopt a story that you actually like. But know that it's just a story. It's not the truth, necessarily. So, that's some deep reflection for you. Let me know if you have questions. I'm sure you do. That's a lot to process in terms of like the full impact of it. But I hope you got something out of it, because it was really quite profound once it was reiterated to me at a time when I needed it, right? That's why it had that level of resonance. So thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. I appreciate you. I'll see you next time.